Hi everyone, it's Katrina. History books don't always get it right. Why is China hiding pyramids? What really happened to Genghis Khan? And what if aliens left messages in our DNA? Prepare to dive deep into the mysteries that history tried to bury. The tombs of the forbidden emperors. Have you ever heard of pyramids in China? Apparently, China is hiding a secret, a massive pyramid obsession. We all know about the iconic terracotta warriors, but what if I told you they were originally guarded by a megalithic pyramid? And get this, there are even more. Imagine farmers digging a well in 1974 and unearthing an army of thousands of clay soldiers. That's exactly what happened when they stumbled upon the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. This was the accidental discovery of the century. It's gone down in history as the greatest archaeological discovery to ever take place in China. This discovery is considered one of the greatest archaeological finds ever, but China seems awfully tight-lipped about some key details. Here's a juicy example. Almost nobody knows that it was originally covered by a monstrous pyramid. Can you picture it? The tomb was capped by a truncated pyramid more than 210 feet tall. Nowadays, the earthen pyramid is so old that it's turned into a grassy hill and is covered in trees. It's also true that the tomb of the emperor itself has never been opened. Chinese archaeologists are forbidden from entering the sacred burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang. There are rumors that archaeologists are worried about booby traps, but that's not what's stopping them. Do you think Indiana Jones would be put off by a few measly booby traps? No way! It's the powers at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, that prevent archaeologists from recovering the emperor's body and unsealing his tomb for the first time in 2,200 years. The government wants to make sure that his remains stay undisturbed. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC. 30 years after that, Emperor Jing of Han was born. He became the sixth emperor of the Han dynasty when he took the throne in 157 BC. And guess what happened when he died in 141? He was buried underneath a monumental pyramid. A pyramid that wouldn't look out of place in ancient Mexico. Did you know that? Take a look at this picture. It is a reconstructed model of the Han Yangling Mausoleum, built for Emperor Jing and his wife, the Empress Wang. Doesn't it look a little Mesoamerican to you? It looks like the kind of pyramid you would expect to find at Teotihuacan, or down in the Yucatan Peninsula. Jing's pyramid isn't just for show. It's surrounded by 86 burial pits filled with terracotta figures. We're talking eunuchs, animals, servants, his entire court in miniature clay form. This isn't just a couple of statues. There are about 50,000 mini soldiers. Most people have no idea that there are multiple pyramids in China containing terracotta figurines. It seems like there is just one place. So, what's the deal with all these Chinese pyramids? Why were emperors being buried under these giant structures thousands of years ago? The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztec, they all loved pyramids too. But why? Is there a connection? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Big thank you to our friends at Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. Magic Spoon is a game changer when it comes to cereal and snacks. They offer a wide variety of flavors, both in their cereal and treat lines, all packed with protein and low in sugar, so you can enjoy all of that fun food you used to eat as a kid without getting a sugar high. Just because you're grown up doesn't mean you can't eat fun things anymore. When I'm working, sometimes the time will fly by and then suddenly I am hangry. I want to eat something now. I know we've all been there. Magic Spoon's cereal and treats are great for that protein boost and satisfying that craving. Having a snack and watching your sugar intake at the same time is not always easy, but Magic Spoon has great options. Magic Spoon fits a variety of diets. It's high protein, almost no sugar, and great if you are keto or diabetic or just want something crispy and chewy for any reason. You don't need an excuse. Magic Spoon's treats have between 11 and 12 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 to 2 grams of net carbs, so you can always get that fuel you need on the go. Or if you're like me, working from home but don't feel like making breakfast, you can grab one of these. For you cereal lovers, Magic Spoon cereal has 13 to 14 grams of protein, 0 sugar, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs in each serving, so you can feel good about what you're eating. Can we bring back cereal for dinner? Anyone? Anyone with me? Want to try Magic Spoon for yourself? I don't blame you. Use my code ORIGINSEXPLAINED or click the link in the description box to try Magic Spoon cereal or treats today and get $5 off. You can also find Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So give it a try. Click the link in the description to go to magicspoon.com/originsexplained or scan the QR code on the screen for $5 off. Enjoy! The Yellow Fever Plot. During the Civil War, a doctor hatched a truly diabolical plan. He aimed to unleash a biological weapon upon the Union: yellow fever. Yellow fever just about brought the United States to its knees. This is the secret history of one of the earliest terrorism plots against the US. It was biological warfare during the Civil War. Dr. Luke P. Blackburn was a physician born in Kentucky with some radical ideas. He was also a Confederate agent, and a mean one at that. Dr. Blackburn initiated a bioterrorism plan against Abraham Lincoln and cities across the US. This story reminds me of when the Mongols flung bodies of plague victims over the walls of European cities to infect them with the plague. Blackburn was going to release yellow fever by distributing infected clothing in Union-held cities. He sounds like a straight-up villain. Blackburn was the foremost expert on yellow fever in America. In 1848, he implemented the very first successful quarantine against yellow fever in Mississippi. He worked for free, controlling other outbreaks across America. Yellow fever decimated cities along the American coast in the 1800s. 28% of New Orleans was killed during the 1853 outbreak. Yellow fever didn't just suck, it was pure agony. The sickness caused hemorrhages in the stomach, making people throw up black gunk like gooey tar. I know, it's gross. And that was exactly what Luke Blackburn wanted to do with thousands of Americans. Blackburn leveraged his knowledge for sinister purposes. He allegedly collected clothing from victims and then shipped these death shrouds north. The evidence against him was damning, forcing him to flee to Canada. It was a bold plan, but not a very good one. Scientists now know that yellow fever doesn't spread through human contact. It's not like the smallpox. You can't bring yellow fever blankets to people you want to infect. Yellow fever spreads through mosquito bites. But nobody knew that during the Civil War. Nobody even knew that germs existed during the Civil War. Dr. Blackburn would later return to America. He wasn't arrested or prosecuted, and he even managed to regain his good name. He combated yellow fever outbreaks in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. In 1878, Blackburn entered politics by running for governor of Kentucky. He remained silent when newspapers questioned his alleged involvement in the yellow fever plot. He commented only once in 1879 that the accusations were too preposterous for intelligent gentlemen to believe. He went on to win the election by a landslide in 1879. Blackburn served one term as governor before health problems got the better of him, and he passed away at the age of 71 in 1887. When the Devil Came to Devon. On the night of February 8, 1855, the Devil arrived in Devon in the UK. It left its tracks all over the snow, which were discovered early in the morning by some very confused and upset villagers. To this day, no one knows what the devil was doing stalking the countryside. Snow fell heavily that night. The little villages of southern Devon were blanketed in white, powdery fluff. It snowed from roughly midnight until 6 in the morning. When everyone got up, the snow should have been pristine and unmarred by footprints. But there were hundreds of tracks. No, there were millions of tracks. Someone or something left bizarre footprints in the snow stretching for several hundred miles, all the way from the River Exe to the River Dart. Early risers left their homes and immediately noticed the hoof-shaped footprints covering the snow outside their houses. You might be thinking, well, maybe it was a pack of escaped horses. But these weren't horse hooves. They almost looked like the letter W, like the hoofprints of some monstrous beast. And to make things even worse, the hoofprints were on the roofs. There were hoofprints where the snow clung to the walls. People followed the prints to the edge of the river and then found the prints continuing on the other side, as if the creature had walked across water. I thought only Jesus was allowed to walk on water, and last time I checked, Jesus didn't have hooves. It didn't take long for the villagers to start spreading the news that something devilish had walked among them in the night. The hopes were the same in villages spread so far apart, it seemed impossible that any pranksters could have been responsible. And even if it was pranksters, unless they were hardcore into parkour, I don't see how they could have been jumping from roof to roof or walking on water, do you? Clergymen came forward to claim that the footprints belonged to the devil, who was roaming the countryside in search of sinners. Unease spread over the land, and nobody slept soundly. Sir Richard Owen had a different idea. Owen was an eminent biologist who believed the tracks were made by badgers. It was his theory that hundreds of badgers snuck out of their burrows and went looking for food in the middle of the night, and their footprints were warped by the freeze-thaw action of the winter. What are your thoughts on this 19th century mystery? Did the devil do it, or was it a bunch of badgers? And now for a quick break, but first I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Leslie Stalker and Jay Myberry for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Nero's human torches. 2,000 years ago, a crazed Roman emperor illuminated his garden parties with human candles. Can you guess who he was burning alive? If you've ever bought fireworks before, you've probably held in your hand the most famous Roman candle. It's the most recognizable firework in the world, but the secret of its name is downright heinous. The Roman candle takes its name from the Christians who were burned alive as entertainment for Emperor Nero. In July of 64 AD, a devastating fire engulfed Rome. For 9 days, the Eternal City was consumed by flames, leaving 2/3 of the city in ruins. Historians like Tacitus provide accounts of the chaos, though his writings must be viewed with a critical eye, since he may have exaggerated some details to paint a more dramatic picture. Don't we all? Tacitus claimed that Nero watched the city burn from his balcony and laughed while playing the fiddle. History has blamed Nero for the great disaster, suggesting that he started the fire to destroy Rome on purpose. Why? Because Nero wanted to rebuild the Eternal City in his image. He thought he was playing a real-life city builder. The Temple of Jupiter Stator was destroyed. The Atrium Vestae, where the Vestal Virgins lived, was also burned down. It was a catastrophe. In the aftermath, Nero placed the blame on a new and stubbornly tenacious sect of Judaism known as Christians. Romans were furious because their city had just burnt down, and the emperor handed them a scapegoat. It was the start of some brutal persecution. There are rumors that Emperor Nero, following the destructive fire, began to crucify Christians as a way of mocking Jesus. He allegedly threw them into the arena to fight against gladiators and lions, but without weapons. That way the Christians were sure to be slain and eaten. Perhaps worst of all was what Emperor Nero is said to have done at his garden parties. He would smother Christians in oil and then light them on fire to illuminate the night. Burning Christians became known as Roman candles, and the name survives to this day as a firework. Keep in mind that not all historians believe that Nero lit people on fire. There is much speculation over how much of Nero's cruelty is true and how much was fabricated by his enemies. Proof of pre-flood civilization. Hold on to your hats, folks. I'm about to blow your mind with a piece of Ice Age art that is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about human history. It's time for the best piece of evidence ever that a sophisticated civilization ruled the Ice Age. There's a sculpture hiding at the National Archaeological Museum of France that has flown under the radar for far too long. The artifact is known as the Venus of Brasimpui. Now you might be thinking, Venus figurines? Been there, done that. But trust me, this one is different. This one depicts a woman wearing a mysterious headdress. Without knowing any specific details, you would assume that this artifact came from Mesopotamia. It looks like a Sumerian-style carving of a woman wearing a ritual headpiece. But when I tell you how old it is, you might have a heart attack. This beautiful sculpture was carved from mammoth ivory. That should give you a fairly good idea that it is seriously old. Mammoths were gone thousands of years before the Sumerians showed up in Mesopotamia. This sculpture was carved 25,000 years ago. Long before the pyramids were a twinkle in the eye of an architect, long before the wheel was invented, long before anyone even dreamed of writing, This incredible sculpture was already gracing the world. It was made by a Neolithic person during the Ice Age. And when I say person, I say it loosely. Scientists don't know if a human carved the statue or if it was a Neanderthal. It used to be that archaeologists said Neanderthals went extinct 40,000 years ago, but they recently changed their minds. Thanks to some new evidence of Neanderthals living in a Spanish cave, it's now suspected that the species survived until at least 24,000 years ago. This incredible sculpture could have been crafted by non-human hands. If the Venus of Brasimpui was only a sculpture of a woman, I wouldn't be this excited. But this sculpture isn't just a woman. It's a woman with a complicated headdress on, looking like maybe she was a priestess or a shaman. She looks like she belongs on a throne. What I'm trying to say is that this sculpture is not of a cave person. This is no depiction of a cave woman wearing scraps of saber-toothed tiger fur. It is real, physical proof that an advanced culture was around during the Ice Age, 20,000 years before mainstream historians say that civilization began. I should also tell you that the figurine was discovered in a French cave called Grotte du Pape in 1894. You can check it out at the museum in Saint-Germain-en-Laye on your next trip to Paris, and be sure to tell us about it. Frankenstein has been found. Frankenstein has been discovered in Belgium. I'm not even kidding. Scientists have found a patchwork skeleton cobbled together from the bones of no less than 5 people. This atrocious monster, this abomination, has archaeologists freaking out. What kinds of horrible things were happening in Belgium 2,500 years ago? When archaeologists excavated a small cemetery in the town of Pomerol, they uncovered 76 cremation burials and 1 body. The body was highly unusual. This excavation took place in the 1970s, so the Frankenstein skeleton has been around for a while. The artifacts found with it point to the skeleton coming from the Roman period, roughly the 2nd century AD. But the skeleton wasn't buried like a Roman. Archaeologists found it scrunched into the fetal position, and that wasn't something the Romans did. Archaeologists found some other weird stuff too. All around the skeleton were random bones. It was as if bits and parts of bodies were thrown in the grave of the mystery skeleton. The case remained cold until 2019, when scientists radiocarbon dated the remains. Their tests proved that the skeleton was from the Roman period, but there were some surprises too. Different parts of the skeleton came from different eras. Some pieces of the skeleton were from the Neolithic period, dating anywhere from 7,000 to 3,000 BC. This was when archaeologist Barbara Veselka from a university in Brussels realized something gruesome and taboo was going on. Further analysis showed that the skeleton was pieced together from various other people. A Roman bone pin was found near the skull and dated to 69 AD, but the skull belonged to a woman who lived about 300 years later. The other bones were Neolithic, dating to thousands of years earlier. This is one of those very rare cases where no one has any idea what's going on. Bioarchaeologist Jane Holmstrom called it a fascinating and complex study, but I could have told you that. So, what was going on here? Was it a morbid ritual, a desperate attempt to connect with the spirits of the past, or something more sinister? Some researchers suggest the Romans may have mixed old and new bones to honor their ancestors. But I'm sticking with the Frankenstein theory. Maybe there was a Roman madman on the loose trying to create a zombie monster. Maybe it was a necromancer. What are your thoughts? The Forgotten Tunnel of the Templars. What are the odds of finding something of incredible historical value buried right beneath your house? Imagine stumbling upon a secret passageway built by one of history's most enigmatic orders, the Knights Templar. That's exactly what happened in the Israeli city of Acre, a city steeped in the blood and glory of the Crusades. After the First Crusade in 1099, Acre was under control of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. During that time, the Knights Templar constructed a buried passage. It served as a secret escape tunnel from their palace to the port. Things in Acre didn't exactly work out the way the Crusaders had envisioned. In the 13th century, the city fell to the Mamluks, and the Templar escape tunnel was lost. It was found totally by accident in 1994 when a woman got in a fight with a clogged sewage line. Did the Templars stash their most prized possessions here? Were they hiding relics of unimaginable power? As the woman struggled to unclog the sewage line beneath her house, she accidentally broke into the Templars' underground secret. Talk about an unexpected plumbing adventure. On one end of the tunnel is the Templar fort, which is long gone, and on the other side is the city harbor, now called Khan al-Umdan. It's unclear what exactly was excavated from the tunnel. Archaeologists cleaned it, installed lights, and opened it to the public in 2007. But there isn't any information on what kinds of treasures they may have gotten from the tunnel. That's unfortunate because there are too many Templar treasures lost. The Templars famously had their headquarters at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, from which they were in charge of defending Christians visiting the Holy Land. But Jerusalem was taken from them by Saladin in 1187. The Muslims conquered most of Jerusalem, but the Crusaders took Acre in 1191. Many believe that when the Templars left Jerusalem and made a new home, they transported precious treasures that they had been keeping at the Temple Mount. Treasures like the Holy Grail, the True Cross, the Ark of the Covenant, holy relics from Christ and Moses. Nobody knows where any of these treasures are. That's why every time someone finds a tunnel that was dug by the Templars, it's really exciting. This book killed 19 witches. 300 years ago, Salem, Massachusetts descended into a terrifying witch hunt. Accusations flew, paranoia gripped the town, and innocent lives were tragically lost. But what truly fueled this horrifying episode? Was it mass hysteria, religious fervor, or perhaps even hallucinogenic mushrooms? For centuries, historians have grappled with this chilling mystery. A new study, however, throws a sinister spotlight on a surprising culprit. A forbidden book on demonology. Enter the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of the Witches, a chilling 1486 guidebook for witch hunters. This book, penned by an arguably insane Dominican monk named Heinrich Kramer, was a how-to manual for identifying, torturing, and executing alleged witches, and a guide for how to make them confess. The book also detailed what to do after that. The after part involved a stake, a rope, and a lot of fire. The new study, recently published in Theory and Society, had scientists map witch hunts across Central Europe. They looked at witch trials from 1400 to 1679. Then they compared the dates and locations of witch trials to where and when the Malleus Maleficarum was printed. The results of the study were shocking, to say the least. Cities near where the book was published were more likely to start their own witch trials. The book played a major role in the rampant witch paranoia at the turn of the century. I'm not saying that one book was responsible for every witch ever burned, but it definitely didn't help. Researchers believe the book on demonology spread its message through a process they've called ideational diffusion. The term references any new adoption of an idea in society that causes the whole culture to change their behavior. This definitely could apply to social media too. This one book had such a big impact on the zeitgeist of the time that for the next almost 300 years, countless people were accused of being witches. Tens of thousands died around the globe. But can this one book be blamed for the Salem witch trials in America? The answer, according to the study, is a chilling yes. The printing press, a revolutionary technology of the time, allowed the Malleus Maleficarum to spread like wildfire, infecting the minds of countless individuals with its dangerous ideas. The story of Salem unfolds like a chilling horror film. A group of young girls, perhaps influenced by the Malleus Maleficarum's descriptions of demonic possession, begin to exhibit strange behavior. This was the start of a very bad summer. Hysteria swept through the colonial territory and led to Salem's first witch trial in 1692. That June, Bridget Bishop was executed by hanging for using witchcraft. Over the next couple months, 200 people were accused, and 19 of them suffered the same fate as Bridget. Now listen to this. In 1702, the Massachusetts General Court declared the trials illegal. It was around that time that several women came forward and admitted they had fabricated the charges. They had lied about being possessed and lied about their neighbors being witches. In 1711, the Massachusetts General Court overturned the convictions of 22 condemned witches, but they were already dead. Talk about too little too late. The alien message in our blood. Apparently, evidence of ancient aliens is inside all of us. Archaeologists have been looking in the wrong spot. When extraterrestrials visited our planet in the ancient past, they left a piece of themselves behind in our living cells. This shocking new theory comes from an astrobiologist at Arizona State University named Paul Davies. It's Paul's belief that if ancient aliens visited us, the proof would be in one of three forms: either nuclear waste, the ruins of a mining operation, or information inside human cells. In other words, Paul thinks there's a message encoded in our DNA, left there by aliens. The science isn't even that difficult to imagine. Take the average virus, for example. Viruses are known to continually infect organisms by uploading their DNA into the host's genome. Viruses download themselves into the hard drive of your body. Paul said that if viruses can encode DNA, why couldn't ancient aliens? And in fact, humans will most likely be able to do it too in just a few years. Then came a discovery from two scientists in Kazakhstan. They recently reported that they found an intelligent signal hidden inside the human genetic code. The code appears to have been intentionally placed inside our genetics, like a bad word snuck into a crossword puzzle. There have already been a few theories put forward to explain the mysterious code. The scientists in Kazakhstan thought maybe it came to Earth on actual space dust, drifting from the outer edges of the universe. It's possible the code is billions of years old, predating all known human life. Isn't that kind of awesome? Another theory gaining traction is that the code was implanted by extraterrestrials, by aliens who tinkered with the DNA of early Homo sapiens, turning them from primitive monkey-brained cave people into brilliant human beings. It seems like crazy science fiction, but it's reality right now on this planet. The 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was given to Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer A. Doudna for their work in editing human DNA. If we can do it, and we barely put a man on the moon, think of the biological tinkering that could be done by a spacefaring civilization. What do you think? Are humans biological machines programmed by aliens? Let me know your thoughts. The secret of Mongolia's forbidden zone. Imagine this, a vast forbidden expanse of Mongolia, a place shrouded in mystery and guarded for centuries. Scientists yearn to unlock its secrets, but the Mongolian government remains fiercely protective. Its lips are sealed. What could possibly be so valuable, so sacred that it's off limits to the world? The answer might lie with the most powerful man of his time, Genghis Khan. His massive empire stretched from the heart of Asia to the very edges of Europe. But here's a fun fact to drop at your next cocktail party. His real name was Temujin. Trust me, you'll impress people. Young Temujin was a shepherd boy growing up on the windswept Mongolian plains. He vowed that one day he would rule the world. He would become Genghis Khan, the universal ruler, a man who united the nomadic tribes of Mongolia and forged an empire that shook the foundations of civilization. But even the most powerful man on earth has to die someday, and when Genghis Khan took his last breath in 1227, he had an unusual request: a humble burial. Can you imagine? The man who conquered vast parts of the globe, the terror of Europe and Asia, wanted to be laid to rest in an unmarked grave. According to legend, he passed away during a campaign against the Tangut Kingdom, possibly from an arrow wound. But there is also a rumor that Genghis Khan was killed by a magic spell cast by the Tangut King. Whatever the case, his body was then transported deep into the Mongolian wilderness. Every human and animal that witnessed the funeral procession was killed. After he was buried, the ground was smoothed to erase any evidence of the spot. After that, all the horses and all the soldiers who saw where the Khan was buried were killed or committed suicide. Shortly after the death of the Khan, an area of 93 square miles near Burkhan Khaldun was announced as a forbidden zone. In Mongolian, it's called Ik Korig, or the Great Taboo. Nobody is allowed into this area, or they could be killed. The only ones allowed in are the direct descendants of Genghis Khan. For centuries, a mysterious tribe called the Darkhad enforced this decree, ruthlessly eliminating any trespassers. Who were these guardians? Where did they come from? The answers remain shrouded in as much mystery as the Khan's final resting place. When the communists seized power in Mongolia, the Forbidden Zone was expanded to a staggering 3,900 square miles. Even Joseph Stalin, the iron-fisted ruler of the Soviet Union, dispatched expeditions to uncover the Khan's tomb, but to no avail. So, what is the Forbidden Zone hiding? Is it truly protecting the Khan's tomb? Or is there something else lurking in the shadows? The Lost Tribes found in America. The Lost Tribes of Israel, those legendary groups who vanished from history, didn't just disappear. They sailed across the vast ocean and landed right here in America, in Ohio of all places. Sounds wild, right? But that's exactly what some people believe, thanks to a series of incredible and incredibly controversial discoveries. Back in 1860, a guy named David Wyrick was poking around some ancient Native American burial mounds near Newark, Ohio. He wasn't looking for lost tribes, just some interesting artifacts. But what he stumbled upon was nothing short of astonishing. Strange stones covered in Hebrew writing. There was a massive keystone boasting phrases like Holy of Holies and King of the Earth. Then there was a stone bowl, and most intriguing, a Decalogue stone, a rock inscribed with a condensed version of the Ten Commandments. Now you can imagine the excitement. David and his friends went digging like crazy, and sure enough, they unearthed a sandstone box containing another Hebrew-inscribed rock. To date the find, they sent some nearby wood fragments to the prestigious Peabody Museum. The results were mind-blowing. The wood dated back to around 85 AD, just a few years after Jesus was crucified. Suddenly, the pieces seemed to fit. Could these artifacts be linked to the lost tribes? Could they have arrived in America centuries before Columbus? The idea was electrifying, but also incredibly controversial. Skeptics, mainly mainstream scientists, argued that the Hebrew inscriptions were forgeries, created by someone with a limited understanding of the ancient language. They pointed to spelling errors that, according to Hebrew expert Frank Moore Cross, could only have come from someone translating modern Hebrew. But of course, there are always people who ask, what if they're wrong? These believers claim that the Hopewell people, a thriving ancient civilization in Ohio, might have descended from the lost tribes of Israel. What do you think? Are the Newark Holy Stones genuine proof of a lost civilization, or are they simply elaborate hoaxes? Let me know in the comments.
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. The Mask from Provadia. A very strange little prehistoric mask has just been uncovered in Bulgaria. With large dark eyes and no mouth, many people think it is eerily similar to an alien. This unique mask was discovered at Europe's oldest mining center in Provadia, with a prehistoric settlement known as the Salt Pit. It's the earliest known prehistoric town on the continent, dating back to the 4th or 5th millennium BC. The archaeologists who found it said that it has holes in it so that it could be worn around the face like a mask, or as a type of necklace like an amulet. The face has eyebrows, a streamlined nose, elliptical eyes, and was probably a type of status symbol of someone who worshipped the sun. The eyes and facial features are clearly carved and polished, and there is probably an important reason the mask has no mouth. We just don't know what it is. However, it is clear that whoever made it without one on purpose. Although they are unsure of the symbolism behind the artifact, they also think that its distinctly shaped eyes and the vertical bands carved beneath them represent something specific, maybe some type of animal or god. Provadia Solnitsata is extremely old and was just recently discovered in 2012. The people here were building complex structures and mining salt before the invention of the wheel. It was first inhabited by a late Chalcolithic society that became rich as a salt production center. The site predates the beginnings of Greek civilization by over 1,000 years. Residents collected salt water from nearby springs and boiled it in ceramic bowls. The water evaporated, and the end product was a chunk of salt ready to hit the trade market. What's left of the town today consists of some homes, a collection of pits that were possibly used for rituals, fortification walls, and a gate. More than 3,000 gold objects were found at an ancient cemetery near the site. They may be connected to Solnitsata and might be some of the treasures the ancient people left behind. Little else is known about the people who lived here. Roman coffins with Celtic decorations. In 2019, archaeologists discovered 2 decorated Roman lead coffins at a quarry in Surrey, England. Only a few hundred such burials are known to exist throughout Britain. The coffins were found with other graves in a small L-shaped cemetery. Measuring 6.2 feet long by 1.5 feet wide, they were made from sheets of cast lead. Both caskets bear images of scallop shells within triangles. Scallops are commonly seen on Roman coffins and are believed to symbolize the journey into the underworld, according to current archaeology. But the ones seen on these coffins may be Romano-Celtic in nature, in which case they represent fertility and rebirth. Traces of wood indicate that the caskets were once encased in larger wooden boxes that deteriorated over time. One contained an adult and a baby, presumably a mother and her child, while the other held the remains of an adult. Because lead was expensive at the time of the burials, it's likely that the individuals were from the upper class, and that the coffins were a display of their elite status. The caskets became distorted over the centuries, with the weight of the earth causing the lids to cave in and soil to pour into the burials. Studying the bones was difficult and revealed very little. But the imagery proved valuable in helping researchers learn more about Roman-era Britain when many Celtic tribes became at least partially Romanized. Based on the findings, it appears as though these groups adopted some Roman traditions, like the lead casket, while retaining some of their own. Lady of Baza. While excavating a pre-Roman settlement in Spain in 1971, a worker struck a hard object. It was a 4-foot-tall funerary statue of a woman dating back nearly 2,500 years. Discovered near the modern-day city of Baza, the limestone sculpture depicts an elaborately dressed woman sitting on a throne. Nicknamed the Lady of Baza, it contains traces of bright pigments that it was once painted with. Inside the statue, archaeologists found cremated human remains dating back to around 380 BC. This and other similar Bronze Age Iberian sculptures are all shrouded in mystery, but the Lady of Baza may provide researchers with intriguing clues to her identity and what Iberian society was like back in the day. The Iberian culture emerged around 1000 BC from the previous Argar society. Composed of skilled metalworkers, the society became wealthy through trade with people from the eastern Mediterranean. The Iberian language is largely undeciphered, leaving experts to rely on artifacts for insight into their life. Found surrounded by grave goods in what was once an Iberian capital, the Lady of Baza was probably an aristocrat. She was buried with an array of items indicating her high social standing, including ceramic pots and metal weapons. Carved from a single stone block, the sculpture bears traces of Greek and Phoenician influence. This makes sense since the Iberians traded extensively with Carthage and a newly established Phoenician capital at the time the statue was made. The Iberian culture disappeared upon Roman conquest, leaving little surviving evidence behind. Rare discoveries like the Lady of Baza are critical to improving our understanding of the ancient civilization. Kiladi civilization. Excavations in several villages throughout Tamil Nadu, India, have increasingly made headlines in recent years for discoveries of artifacts from the enigmatic Kiladi civilization. Some of the objects date as far back as 850 BC, and it's believed that the sites may have been occupied by humans as early as 2,600 years ago. Earlier this year, archaeologists unearthed 25 burial urns at one Kiladi site, which they believe was a cemetery. It's been suggested that the civilization descended from the Harappan culture, and DNA tests are being performed on the remains in hopes of learning more about their origins. A rusted 16-inch dagger was recently found in a burial urn. It was broken in half, but part of its wooden handle remained intact. The weapon dates back to the Sangam period, which lasted from the 3rd century BC to the 3rd century AD. The digs have also turned up cow, ox, buffalo, and goat remains, showing that the Kiladi people had domesticated animals and farmed. Around 500 BC, the society experienced an agricultural boom that enabled growth and gave rise to new urban centers. Evidence of production includes spinning and weaving equipment, cloth dyeing tools, ceramic workshops, and brick kilns. But it wasn't all work and no play for the Kiladi, who played board games and inscribed their pottery with the Tamil Brahmi script, an early script that was used for writing during the Old Tamil period. The artifacts that have been unearthed so far show that the Kiladi people were self-sustaining, industrious, and a literate early urban society. But experts still have a lot to learn about this little-studied ancient civilization. And now for number 6. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Dirty Nikki and Scott Allison. Thanks so much for supporting this channel, and be sure to let us know what other things you would like to see in the comments below. If you want to see more videos about discoveries and archaeology, hit that subscribe button before you leave. Mystery Woman. After purchasing a vintage camera in 2015, Irish camera collector William Fagan noticed that there was an undeveloped roll of film inside, but it wasn't until last year that he finally got around to developing it. The result was a collection of 22 photos featuring a glamorous young woman who he is hoping someone can help him identify. The images show the beautiful lady posing on a deserted street in northern Italy, in a mid-1930s BMW cabriolet in Switzerland, besides a lake at an unknown location, and in a handful of other places in Europe. She appeared to be traveling with an older, more camera-shy gentleman. Fagan told CNN that he felt like he was intruding on someone's personal life by looking at the photos, but he ironically decided to release them to the public in hopes of finding out who they belong to. He believes the images date back to the 1950s, which means that the people in them could still be alive. Some people speculated that the couple may have been famous, while others suspected that they are long-lost relatives of their family. Last year, Fagan said that he hopes to get one step closer to solving the mystery by contacting BMW enthusiast clubs with the license plate information from one of the photos. In the meantime, he is taking all the help he can get from the public. The photographer is doing what he calls photographic archaeology, which he is really passionate about. With any luck, or perhaps some more digging, he'll hopefully reunite the couple or their surviving loved ones with some recently rediscovered long-lost memories. The Trojan horse. Has the horse of legend finally been found? While excavating the ancient city of Troy in modern-day Turkey recently, archaeologists found what they believe are the remnants of the famous Trojan horse. Discovered on the hills of Hisarlik, the fascinating find came in the form of a large wooden structure assembled from dozens of strangely positioned fir planks. Each beam measures up to 49 feet long. Radiocarbon dating tests put the suspected horse's construction sometime during the 12th or 11th centuries BC, and according to experts, this date aligns with the recorded dates for the Trojan War. Until recently, most researchers considered the Trojan horse to be a mythical structure, and this discovery could prove to be a game changer in our understanding of this chapter in history. Homer's epic poems The Iliad and the Odyssey recount the story of the Trojan War. Oddly, they do not mention the horse, and the Iliad concludes before the war's end. The Trojan horse is also detailed in the Aeneid by Virgil, which was written during the reign of the Roman Emperor Augustus. Historians believed that Virgil's reference to the horse was metaphorical in nature, perhaps relating to a natural disaster or a war machine. They are rethinking this theory now that the possible remnants of the horse have been found. The structure fits the ancient writer's description, indicating that his intentions were quite literal rather than an analogy. In addition to the horse, archaeologists found a gold plate that was mentioned in the epic poem Post-Homerica by Quintus Smyrnaeus. Just like the text mentions, the plate is inscribed with the words, "For their return home, the Greeks dedicate this offering to Athena." For some time, experts were unsure whether Troy itself ever existed. Research has come a long way in recent years by not only proving that the city itself was real, but that the Trojan War and many of the stories about it were also built on truth. Suontaka grave. Over 50 years ago, back in 1968, archaeologists in southern Finland discovered an intriguing 1,000-year-old burial called the Suontaka grave. It contained human remains, a sword with a bronze handle, another weapon, and feminine jewelry, all signs that the person was highly respected within their community. The grave's occupant was dressed in womanly attire, with a sword at their left hip, and was laid to rest on a soft feather blanket. The weaponry indicated a man, but the clothing and jewelry sort of hinted towards a woman. So who was buried here? Researchers theorized that perhaps the burial contained two people, or that it was the grave of a powerful female who was in a leadership position, defying the gender norms of the late Iron Age. A solid explanation was lacking until this year, when scientists performed an analysis of badly damaged DNA collected from the remains. They confirmed that the burial contained just one person and found evidence of Klinefelter syndrome, a condition characterized by the presence of two X chromosomes and one Y chromosome, rather than the standard X and Y. While the symptoms vary, it's possible that the individual exhibited seemingly male and female traits. This would explain their mixture of grave goods, and also serves as evidence that the community must have understood on some level the combination of masculine and feminine so long ago. A crazy beast among dinosaurs. A strange and unusual large mammal dubbed Adalatherium, or crazy beast, once lived with the dinosaurs. After studying the bizarre creature's remains for 20 years, researchers recently released their findings, finally. They described the specimen as the most complete mammal from before the dinosaurs' extinction ever found in the southern hemisphere. The possum-sized creature was much larger than most other mammals of its time, which were typically the size of shrews or mice. It had strong hind limbs similar to those of a modern-day crocodile, front teeth like a rabbit, more trunk vertebrae than most of today's mammals, and back teeth unlike any known living or extinct mammal. The crazy beast emerged into existence around 145 million years ago on what is now the island of Madagascar. In fact, by then, Madagascar was already an island. The species belonged to the extinct Gondwanatheria mammal group, which had a widespread presence throughout the supercontinent of Gondwana, but its isolation on Madagascar might explain its unique anatomy. Despite the extensive study, however, the creature's placement on the mammal family tree remains undetermined. Experts are also baffled about how the crazy beast evolved. At first glance, it resembles a modern-day badger, but it's unclear how the animal moved with its sprawling back legs and tucked-in front legs. The creature's teeth also pose more questions than answers. Its back chompers are so out of the ordinary that scientists would have been unable to identify the animal based on the teeth alone, and there's an unexplained hole between the bones at the top of the snout. The most definitive conclusion that can be drawn from these fascinating findings is that the scientific community still has a lot to learn when it comes to our planet's earliest creatures. Saka warrior people. Central Asia was once home to a mysterious warrior tribe called the Saka people, who thrived between the 8th and 3rd centuries BC. This little-studied civilization is best known for gold artifacts excavated from burial mounds in modern-day Kazakhstan, where warriors were laid to rest with their horses. Sadly, many of the graves were looted, but the burial of a teenage archer was found intact, thanks to rockfall that effectively hid his grave from view for 2,500 years. He was 18 years old at the most when he died, and was buried with a female relative. Their tomb was discovered and excavated over the last 3 years, and it's only the second intact Saka burial ever found. Dozens of these grave goods will soon go on display in a reconstruction of the archer's grave at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, England. In addition to being skilled warriors, the Saka people were talented artisans who worked with gold and other metals. The bulk of the artifacts that archaeologists have uncovered came from 3 different burial complexes in Kazakhstan. While hundreds of items might seem like a lot, it's actually not much when it comes to learning about an entire culture. For now, experts admittedly have more questions than answers about this enigmatic but fascinating culture. Headless Buddha. While renovating an apartment complex in the city of Chongqing in southwestern China, workers discovered a 30-foot-tall religious statue hidden behind a thick wall of foliage. The moss-covered sculpture had gone undetected for quite some time. After its discovery, it went viral overnight on Chinese social media, quickly earning itself a reputation as the Buddha. Experts believe that the nearly forgotten statue was built sometime between 1912 and 1949, during China's Republican era. It was likely destroyed during the 1950s, roughly 30 years before the surrounding apartment complexes were built. And contrary to its nickname, the statue is not of Buddhist origin, but was inspired by a folk religion, according to researchers. The district government told local media that a Taoist temple dedicated to the god of thunder once stood near the artifact, but that the temple was dismantled in 1987. And although the statue fell into obscurity, it's actually a designated cultural relic. Like many cities throughout China, Chongqing is rapidly expanding. In recent decades, countless structures have been built to accommodate the region's burgeoning population of 30 million and counting. Discoveries like the statue, which became hidden quite quickly and easily, point toward the possible nearby presence of other forgotten artifacts and ruins. Urban expansion has the power to destroy archaeological gems, But when it's done right, it is also a great way to uncover secrets from the past. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. See you later. Bye!